Okay, we're recording. Episode 3, Mr. Ogden and Lee, after a long anticipated 2-week break.
Greetings.
Welcome. Injuries. This is all we're talking about for the next 37 minutes and 37 seconds. So
Injuries.
I think I don't know how to start or how to best start, but I think it'd be helpful to list like all the factors that we can think of that go into one injury.
Nutrition.
So
Let's go. Let's just start talking.
would like to I have a list written down, but
Hydration.
Sleep.
nice.
Psychological
Stress.
stress. Genetics.
Fatigue. What'd you do the day before? What'd you do the day after?
Work.
Practice plan.
Workload. Academic workload.
Mhm. It was a contact. What else? I mean, that's pretty much. What's that?
Asymmetry.
Asymmetry.
Yeah. Compensation patterns developed over time from playing AAU basketball for your whole life.
Okay. Nick.
You guys.
Nothing else? I mean, that was a dozen things right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think the reason that I thought like that is, I don't know. I feel like I talked to both of you and like other people, and every week, and it's like somebody's getting blamed for an injury, or and whatever. And like some settings, like somebody has to pass the blame, or somebody's going to get blamed for whatever. But when you step back and think about it, it's like there's a ton of things that go into an injury, and I think it helps to at least think like that, so that if it happens, that's how you can approach conversation instead of trying to either defend yourself or have to go into like an argument in a situation where you are being blamed.
Well, if you're in my opinion, if you're in those arguments with people in your workplace, then you need a different workplace.
You're in the wrong workplace.
You're with the wrong people.
Yeah, you're with the wrong people. I mean, I would say in the last 2 jobs, I've never been blamed for an injury, or we've never had
In the last 3 jobs.
last 2. We've never had a conversation. We've never had a conversation revolving around, hey, how did lifting weights or running conditioning cause this kid to tear his ACL? Like I've never had that conversation, but I've seen have had those in the past.
Like I felt like my whole entire time coaching was always not terrified, but always knowing that if somebody got hurt, it was total war. Always. And I don't know. And it's like I still remember like the first big injury. I remember I was at the game and I was like, oh, this is going to be terrible. Like, because we already had things like that people didn't like, and whatever, back squats are bad for your knees, and then somebody gets hurt, and you just know it's coming. Like, so it's interesting because it's like some places, and it's all like situation dependent, but it's like some places that would never ever happen. Like, and I mean, blaming like strength and conditioning for an injury, but then other places or situations, it's like 100% that fault.
But not even just strength and conditioning. Like coaches blaming strength and conditioning, or blaming strength and conditioning and athletic training, or athletic training blaming strength and conditioning, or strength and conditioning blaming athletic training, or strength and conditioning, athletic training blaming the coaching staff. Like,
True.
It's a circle of
Nothing.
Utter doom and never ending. Like you said, we just in 10 seconds we listed 15 variables to injuries.
Yeah.
Of which those 3 areas you just described, some of them can't even be controlled by those 3 areas.
And Mike and I always used to say this when we were working together, like, until you show me the athlete that does everything perfect from nutrition, hydration, sleep, all that stuff on their end.
Yeah.
They're not out drinking and staying up till 3 a.m. playing video games and doing all that stuff. Until you can show me that they've done all that absolutely perfectly correct, then you can't blame me for an injury.
Yeah. And see, and I think even then, that was whatever, 4 or 5 years ago. And it's like, even then I felt like that argument was good. Like that, like people at least would be willing to listen to it. Now, I don't even think it matters. I think it's like, well, it's your fault. And it's like, and it's almost okay if they don't take some responsibility for it too.
Well, my one of my favorite things ever. This is when we were at Augie, when I was at Augie with you, Nick.
Yeah.
Was a kid got kind of lightheaded during a workout during it was like a 6:30 or 7 a.m. workout, and had to sit out. And the athletic trainers like, well, your workout's way too hard. I go, no, it's not, because the other 20 kids made it. I go, this kid probably didn't eat breakfast in the morning or this morning. And he goes, well, if you expect a kid to wake up in the morning and eat breakfast like that, then you're crazy. I was like, what? So
Yeah.
we're talking about a scholarship athlete, an athlete that gets paid to come in here, work out, and perform.
Correct.
They get all their school paid for. At that time there was no NIL, but like now there is. And they can't wake up an extra 5 minutes early and make a little bit of breakfast before they come in to work
Have a
out.
bowl of Wheaties or something,
Or even just have a protein shake,
Yeah.
have a thing of chocolate milk, have something.
See, that's interesting because it's like, even that claim for that, like taking a little bit of a detour, but it's like someone gets lightheaded. Oh, they just didn't eat. It's like, no, that's not true, really, because so many people, they don't eat breakfast at all, or they fast, or they, like we talked about that, Nick,
Yeah.
too. And it's like, well, how then, like, does that easy answer? It's like, oh, they got hurt because they just didn't eat enough. Well, maybe, but again, it goes back to like our first list. Like, well, there's like 15 things. So saying, oh, they didn't eat enough, well, that probably isn't valid. So cross that one off. It's just way bigger than one. Oh, well, they were saying they were sore from RDL and then they hurt themselves. So now what? It's like, no.
Yeah. The point I was mostly trying to make there is like, it went from this kid should be more responsible to, no, your workout was too hard. You should have made your workout
Correct.
easier. You should have planned.
Yeah.
Should have planned for them for
Not take care of themselves.
knowing that they would not be prepared when they walked in that day.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. See, I still remember, like, when we talked, I think it was because when we were working together, when it was like the first ACL that we had, and I was like freaking out, and then you're like, well, I mean, I think first you're like, whatever, like, who, it's gonna happen. I was like, yeah, whatever, just whatever. And then you're like,
Injuries,
I mean, are you squatting? I was like, yeah. Are you doing unilaterals, lower body? Yeah. Are you doing posterior chain? Yeah. Are you doing this? I was like, yeah. I was like, okay, then what else do you want? I was like, okay, yeah, screw it. Like, and not screw it, but it's like, well, okay, what else am I supposed to do? Or what else are we supposed to do?
Well, if you as a practitioner are living in fear of injuries,
Yeah, you're done for.
well then you will just kick performance out the window then.
Yeah.
Because how are you supposed to push and adapt them to the
See?
point at which they need to be and expect to come out completely injury free?
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
See, and yeah. What, Nick, what do you think? What do you think? Anything else?
My point that I was going to make is kind of off topic, like not off topic, but just kind of like flipping one of the views on its side or flipping it to 180. Cause like you talk about how people are quick to blame like opposite departments and stuff like that. You almost got to watch out too, because a lot of them will be the first to say like, oh, what I do works.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you're claiming that what you do works, it's like, as soon as something happens, it's like,
Except,
well, why didn't it work? Or like, well, then that's your fault because you're saying everything you do works. And it's like, you can't take credit for something that happens for someone and then like not, and think it's not your fault when it doesn't happen for something else. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just thought that like, you got to be careful with saying it's the good things are your fault, but the bad things aren't your fault. Was kind of what I'm at.
yeah, it's like taking credit, but then avoiding all blame,
Yeah. So it wasn't really in line with what you guys were talking about, but that was kind of the one point I was going to make.
Well, yeah, but it goes into like, and I don't want this to just turn into like people blaming people for injuries or whatever. It's more about like all the factors involved, like what can we do? But yeah, that, I mean, and like that kind of is like back to what Logan said too. It's like, you know, if you're at a place where somebody's blaming you for something, and you know, it's probably not the best situation that you can be in.
Yeah.
Well, okay, Mike, listen to this. So how many times did we meet as a quote unquote, what you would call like a sports performance staff, where athletic training, physical therapy, nutrition, which we didn't have any, so you and I are the nutritionists, strength and conditioning, all got in the same room and discussed performance? How many times did that happen in your career and my career?
Never before, never like as a plan, like not to like plan or create a plan anyway.
Yeah, never.
I've had meetings where we've had injuries and then we meet to figure out a plan. I'm like,
sure, reactively.
Correct.
Reactively. I'm talking about proactive.
Yeah, no. And it's like, I've had like, it's like we've talked, and I've had a couple other conversations in the past, like 3 weeks, and they're all like basically the same. It's like, kid gets hurt. What do I do now? And it's like, well,
yeah,
nothing now. What does it matter? It doesn't matter. Like, and don't think that like, if someone tries to blame somebody, it's like, they're always wrong, no matter if it's coach blaming strength blaming coach, blah, blah. It's like, it doesn't matter. It's like, it's going to happen. Like it. Yeah. So if you're, and I was thinking about this too, it's like, if you're planning on people never getting hurt, well, then you're already behind, because you have to be ready for people to get hurt and then know what to do, Yeah.
I'd say one thing that's really adjusted in my career is that I'm constantly getting in the room with all those people ahead of time. So we're meeting bi-weekly or once a month. At Utah State, it was more like once a month, to just discuss what happens. What are we doing? Where are we going? What's our greater plan for the year, for the career of the athlete? What are our mitigation strategies? What's our outlook? What do we have in motion for future endeavors that's going to better the program or better the department? I mean, those conversations are constantly being had. And so when it comes down to it, like if something catastrophic happens, when I say like catastrophic is a terrible word probably for just a common injury, but like sometimes that's what they seem like. Something catastrophic happens, everybody's already on the same page. Everybody already knows what the other person's doing.
Correct.
So now the blaming doesn't happen.
Yeah. Well, and I think that helps, as like, that's like a shared responsibility. Like now everybody's kind of in agreement on what you and this and that person's doing. Well, if something happens, it's like, well, it's all of our faults. So what can we do better? It's not a horrible thing, or it is, but whatever. Because and the thing is, like, everybody is going to be hurt. Like at some point, like people are going to get hurt. So if you don't have a backup, well, then you're already screwed. If you think they're not going to get hurt, you're already screwed. Like they're going to be like, it's like, okay, you two both played football. Were you ever hurt in your career?
Yeah.
Yep. Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So and that's two people right there. Bang. So you're going to be hurt, and it's like, you better learn how to play through it and figure out what to do to make it better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whenever I talk with athletes nowadays, because I work with a fair amount of some that have just come off injury or anything.
Sure.
Sometimes they're down in the dumps, sometimes they're not, whatever it is. But we just talk about injuries. I'm like, hey, it's part of the game. You get hurt.
Correct.
Me and my brothers, there is multiple surgeries per guy. So, it's just like, it's part of it. You push too hard, put a little too much salt in, and then you have to get fixed and adapt.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know many sports, maybe bowling, that aren't like just violent in nature. And when I say violent, I don't mean like human to human contact, but like start, like top end speed, making sharp cuts, like whatever that might be. And then obviously like you got your football, basketball, soccer, where they're all
obvious risks,
where there's a ton of contact. Hockey, there's a ton of contact. And so you're taking your body and moving it at Mach speed, saying make really, really fast decisions.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen.
Exactly. Well, then it's like it goes back to like even when you go to the weight room, it's like, well, you start everything off light and simple and slow, and it's like, but that everything you add to the program makes it more difficult. So if if you take somebody who's never squatted before, but you put 225 on the bar and tell them to do it 10 times as fast as they can, well, they might get hurt. So, but you put somebody on a basketball court, have them sprint, jump, get hit, get thrown around and they get hurt. Well, it's not really that surprising. It's like people are going to get hurt playing. Like I remember listening to like Joe DeFranco, and he talked about Brian Cushing, who I don't know, but he said like he's had tons of injuries. But his thing, like Joe said, he's like, listen, he's like, Brian works as hard as he can every time he lifts weights, every time he plays football. He's like, so he's going to get hurt. But it's like that's why Brian's where he's at, is because he goes all out. And it's like most people, I think we used to talk about this too. It's like we're not going to have that many injuries because people aren't going to try that hard. Like when you get to the high level of people that work really hard and try really hard, well, they're going to get hurt. Like look at Tiger Woods in golf, like you said with bowling. He doesn't get hit, like he doesn't sprint, but he's hurt like crazy. But it don't matter. Like what's he gonna do?
Yeah, you're right. But at the same time, he's putting a ton of force.
Yeah.
2 joints.
Yeah.
He always blows up in his back, and it's just like,
well, do you want to hit the ball far or not?
I mean, like I've had two back surgeries. And so do you think I attribute those to football? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because in football, I was always in an optimal position. You know what it's from? It's from spinning 10,000 times a year trying to throw a shot put in a discus.
Yeah, exactly.
And as much torque and as much separation as possible so I could throw it as far as I could. Right. And I did that. I've done that since I was in 7th grade.
Yeah.
I spun like that since 7th grade. So in the same direction.
Yeah, correct.
So why do you think I don't have the ability to rotate anymore? Why is my T-spine so tight?
Yeah.
I have a ton of low back pain. Well, that's
probably because you neglect it.
But I also didn't know what I knew now.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Well, that's the thing. And it's like everything.
I just went out there and it's like, no, I got to throw this as far as I can. Okay. I'm going to practice throwing as far as I can every single day.
Exactly. And I think everybody, certain types of people are like that, but it's like, okay, like if I want to be good, well, I'm gonna have to do it every day. I don't really care. Like, it's like if you let your feelings get involved, it's like, well, you're done for. So you have to do that in order to be what you want to be.
Yeah.
Also, the better you get, the higher levels you would go to athletically and competition wise, the better your chances are of something happening.
Yeah.
Just because it's just a faster, more explosive, more forceful game, the higher you get, regardless of what you're doing.
And you could say it the other way too, where if you're already at a high level and you try to go down and do something super simple, like
exactly. It's like you always have those people who, like they're a elite powerlifter or a high level NBA player, and they blow their knee out stepping off a curb. It's like how does that but those examples are good because when you learn those things, then it's like, hey, this kid hurt their knee. It's probably from squat. It's like, oh, it could be, but that guy squats 1,000 pounds and his knees are fine. And that guy, it's like, no. And I think that's where like your own education comes in play huge. It's like if you have examples on the top of your head of like, like the Brian Cushing or like even your 2 examples, it's like, oh no, like Logan played football and he doesn't think that hurt his back. It was, or not lifting or whatever. It's like, there's always an example of the extreme, and it's helpful to have that in mind.
What's our next little topic here?
On injuries?
Yeah. What's your next bullet?
Well, I think a lot of this I think the reason we're even talking about this is because, like the term injury prevention gets thrown around.
Oh, there's no such thing.
Yeah, is a disaster. But again, it's like, and there's almost like within the field, there's a I don't know, a divide, I guess, but it's like you have people like traditionally, like a private sector might like they or people might use injury prevention as a term, as like a marketing thing, like, oh, if you train here, you're not going to get hurt and blah blah blah, whatever. And who knows, like people might have these secret voodoo things. I don't care, but like, I just think we should talk about like that term. Cause it helps to have kind of like we talk about with practicing and getting hurt or reps and things like that. I think it helps to have a good definition of that in mind.
I think injury prevention, like, because I used to say it all the time,
Yeah.
back when I was a GA and probably like my first job. Like the idea behind that from a strength and conditioning practitioner standpoint is that we want to make the athlete more resilient. We want to make the tissue more robust. And that's where we bring in the term injury prevention. The thing is, it's a bad term just because like nobody can prevent injury. Nobody can. Like it's not, and if you could, whoever decides that they can or finds out a way that they can will be a billionaire.
Yeah.
Is that because there's already $1 billion business that goes into injury prevention with all the cool toys and the kinesio tape and whatever else you can think of, that the copper fit, whatever, that doesn't
Come on.
come on, I love Brett Favre. That does or does not work. But like I guarantee you're still gonna get injured. There's no that's why these pro athletes spend millions of dollars every year trying to take care of the body.
Yeah, exactly.
James literally spent, I don't know whatever the number was last year, taking care of his body. How many games did he miss?
And he still gets hurt.
I mean, he missed, like, the thing is, he's a Ferrari, and like
Yeah.
every once in a while he's got to go in for a tune-up. That's just the way it is. And he's an old Ferrari now, so it's going to happen more and more often. So anyway, the term prevention, I think, was loosely used early on, and it should really be mitigation. Like, here's our plan to hopefully mitigate as many injuries as possible. And there's good plans and there's bad plans.
Nick.
There's no plans, I should say.
I was just gonna say, I was gonna follow up with that. What's good plan versus bad plan?
Yeah.
Well, a bad plan is a no plan, in my opinion. Like, you can probably just
There can be a plan that's not maybe intelligently programmed or something.
sure,
like that.
absolutely. Yeah, if you're not taking into account like how you load, like different, just like in the weight room. Would you ever go from 50% to 80% one set to the next? No. So why would you go from 50% to 80% in a practice one day after the next?
See, I think the problem too, like even just with that, is that it's easy to quantify that in the weight room, but I don't think it's as easy to quantify it on the court or field. Like they just, it's not as like black and white. It's like for us, it's like, oh, we're doing, 15 reps at 75%. Okay, that's whatever, fairly easy, whatever. But it's way easier to control, especially if you just take like, person A who works hard and listens. It's like, okay, that's whatever. It doesn't matter. But it's a little bit more difficult, like in practice, especially if like like the perspectives don't align very well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when it comes to sport play and practice, you're gonna be talking more on the extreme level. So, like I was talking to you the other day. So when you go from in basketball, you have a period of where you can train for 8 hours.
Yeah.
So that's usually 4 hours of strength and conditioning, 4 hours of basketball practice. So we're talking 30-minute sessions, 4 days a week, right? And then that goes from 8 to 20 in the matter of one day. Like, you have a certain number of weeks, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, it's 20 hours a week. So on the Monday of 20 hours, and before that, the longest practice you may have had was an hour, and maybe you only had one of those in that week. Do you want to go right to 3-hour practices every single day for the first week? So like, that's the extreme there, right? Or do you want to go, let's say, like for us, for example, so we just finished our summer training session, right? The guys get 20 days off. Okay. So they're gone. They have 20 days off. When they come back on the start of the school, do you think we have a team practice on Monday? No. Like, we won't have anything organized for 2 whole days, like really organized. Right. But the guys are back and they're shooting and they're doing their stuff on their own. Then we start organized play, but organized play is 3 days in the weight room,
Right.
in the weight room for 3 days. And then we start practice. And our first practice will be 30 minutes long and it'll be a skill session.
Right.
So it's just like, yes, you can quantify it more easily in the weight room, but I still think conceptualize that, like you can use time. You can use time, for instance. Like is practice an hour, 30 minutes, 3 hours, whatever that might be. Okay, let's not be stupid on how we undulate throughout the week, how we load after a vacation period, how we do things at certain times a year. Can I share my screen? Can I share my screen? Can I show you guys something?
Yeah, you should be able to.
You care? Do you want or should I
I don't care.
more things to talk about?
Lay it on us.
Post
Well,
test.
I was gonna go back and talk about the term. Can you share?
No.
You can.
It says the host has to host disabled participating sharing.
Wow.
Okay.
Nice.
All right, you guys see this?
Yep.
Okay. So this is 10 years of injury data.
Oh God.
Okay. When do you think this is right here?
Beginning of practice.
Starting at 20 hours. Start at 20 hours.
Correct.
When do you think this is right here?
Summer.
It's towards the end of summer.
Yeah.
Like, so basically we've gone through a 4-week block, probably didn't plan it great. Okay.
Yeah.
Right here at the end of the summer. So then this takes place pretty much throughout the first part of the year. So
Yep.
pretty much throughout the first part of the year. So we're in
All your like all those variables
we're
you
in the
mentioned.
games,
Traveling.
started travels, especially during non-conference play.
Yep.
Probably still practicing fairly hard. We haven't cut it back yet. Guess when this is?
After winter.
After Christmas break.
Christmas break. Yeah.
So that's
So
like
we-
a 5 or 6 day period off.
Yeah, and then we come back and hammer it here, like everybody does. And then you deal with that for a little while longer. Well, then you got to get ready for the conference tournament, right?
Yeah. See,
Okay.
so I was thinking about this as you started talking about this, and this is another problem just with like college sports in general, I think. It's like, so now the problem is too, I think it was easy to blame the coaches like, oh yeah, they just jacked up practice, whatever, they got hurt now, whatever. But now it's like those coaches now, they have like 16 months to show that like things are going well. Otherwise they're getting fired.
Yeah,
So it's like,
100%.
unless they come in, like obviously the best plan, and I don't think anyone would disagree, is to come in and go super slow, make sure everyone's ready for everything. And it's like, that's the way to do it. But if you're telling people like, hey, you're going to get 18 months. And if things aren't, you haven't turned things around and whatever, you're done. So part of me doesn't even blame them when they want to like put the pedal to the metal and like, see how things are going and push their team and try to get something out. I don't know.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I don't disagree with you either. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, but this is our historical data just on a different scale. This is what we did last year. Follows it almost identical, right?
Right.
Identical. Okay. I'm done. I'll stop sharing. But
Yeah.
and we didn't really have anything super catastrophic. We had one ACL early in the year from a JUCO transfer kid, and he was predisposed. You could tell already. Like it was just, there's a lot of variables in that. But other than that, we didn't really have a ton of stuff. Some angles, that was basically it. But back to your point, I don't disagree with you. I absolutely 100% don't. And I'm not saying we don't need to reach high numbers and high loads and really push the guys. I'm not saying we don't, because I think we do. I think we do. We need to do hard things in order to accomplish hard things. Like that needs to happen. But we can be intelligent about the way we do it in certain times of the year, like going into 20 hours after big breaks, final week, Christmas break, whatever that means, getting ready for long road, like coming off a long road trip or something like that. We can just be way more intelligent. And I'll say this, that's the guy I work for. He thinks about that stuff.
Yeah.
Constantly. Are there things we need to tweak? Absolutely. But he's good to work for. Work with, because he takes all that stuff into account, and like he never passes the buck. he never passes the buck on to athletic training or
Yeah, which is true leadership.
nutrition or anybody. He just wants everybody to make sure they're doing their job.
Yeah.
And we have some sort of rationale for the reason some things happen.
Right. When it goes back to like Nick's point too, it's like a real leader. It's like something happens. It's like, all right, what are we gonna do? Like, it's not a, hey, like this is your fault. What are you gonna change? No, they would never, like, and that's a good thing. Like if that's what you have, it's like that's a good situation, because it's easy for most people to just blame, and it's not effective. I was going to talk about your point, like you talked about, like, and as I was listening, you talk about injury prevention. It's like, I don't think the term is bad, but like, it's like, strength and conditioning, like you're trying to prepare the tissues to handle more force, whatever. So in theory, you're going to prevent injury, but the way that it comes across is like you're selling a healthy product. And so if somebody gets hurt, like I always used to tell people, like, listen, do not go in there and tell them anything about preventing injury, or if they lift weights, they'll be healthy. Don't do it, because if you promise that and somebody gets hurt, you are done for.
Mhm.
And that's it. And like, especially like in a different, in a college setting or things, like you got to be careful what you say. Like you can't, it's not like, hey, if we do this exercise, or you give me another day a week or another 10 minutes, like they're going to be stronger and they're not going to get hurt. It's like, no, that's not the case.
Sometimes it's contrary. Like sometimes, like, well,
Yeah,
if we do less, that'll be better.
exactly.
You just never know.
Exactly. Anything else you can think of?
We got 6 minutes and 23 seconds.
Yeah. I think I was thinking about this too. It's like, like we talked about like all the factors and like blame and things like that. And it's like, well, the one area that's like, physically and mentally, but like physically building the body to be stronger and like make tasks easier. It's like, I just more than ever now, it's like that's not the reason that injuries happen. Like, yeah, people can get hurt lifting weights, of course, but like we talked about, they can get hurt doing anything. But that's like the most valuable place for people to be, that, and like, even going beyond that, it's like you talked about, it's like, we had one injury last year. Okay. You had 16 kids on the team. So what is that? 6%? Like what? Not who cares, but like, that's such a small number.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very,
and it's easy to get fixated on like one thing. But if, the team's 90% healthy and you have one kid out, I mean, you got to be below average.
Yeah. And
the best teams too. It's like, you look at, okay, like Alabama football. Oh, they're the best. And people, they're always available to play. No, they probably have more injuries than anyone else. They just have more people to fill a spot. Like,
you're the 5-star that just got hurt is back to the 5-star.
Yeah. Like, it's like, oh, the starting quarterback got hurt. Okay. We have another kid that can start. It doesn't matter. Like that's the thing. So it's like, okay, well, we have to make sure we have, people in reserve to take the place. Like, and that has to be the mentality. It's like, oh, kid got hurt. All right. It's next guy. Or, I don't know. It's just, there's a lot of factors that go in.
And the guy that got hurt is probably a genetic freak and can come back from the injury faster than a normal human.
Yeah.
Well,
like I was thinking about this too. And like what I always try to do, because I think when an injury happens, it's easy for people to, it's easy to like react and like, like give them a little bit more and be worried about what's going to happen, blah, blah. But it's like, I think our role is strength and conditioning. It's like, hey, yeah, sorry you got hurt, but what time are you coming in tomorrow? Like, I'll have a plan to get started. It's like, you can't sit there and dwell on it. It's like, hey, what are we going to do to start fixing it or getting ready for surgery or whatever? It's like, but our job is physical preparation. It's like, so what are we going to do to work at this, not wallow in it?
Yeah. If you want to turn it into a success, you got to focus on the things you have to do to make it that success. You can't sit there and dwell on the negatives because that's just going to send you down the wrong path.
And like you said, Logan, it's like, even if you have a catastrophic knee injury, whatever. Okay. Like there's a lot worse things. So what, like, you can rally and it'll be fine. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think, yeah, it just helps like for when we can try to help put things in perspective for sure.
I also think at that time, like you kind of say about bouncing back and focus on what you need to do next, like the relationship building and like the trust factor of what you can give with an athlete is a crucial part in that moment, because they want to know that you have their best interest in mind. And sometimes it's that mental game. And then like once they trust you and know that you actually care about them because they're going through something tough, and then you go through like, this is what we need to do, then the whole relationship can be taken to another level after you go through that process.
Right.
So I think that's something good that can come out of that injury as well. Not just them getting better athletically, but like you can develop a better relationship with the athlete at that point.
Right. And anybody that's in it for the right reason, like athlete mainly, they're going to come out better than they,
Yeah.
they're going to leave the injury better than when they got hurt, and anyone that's going to work at it. I mean, there's going to be kids that they didn't care at the beginning and got hurt and they're going to be worse. Like, well, that's going to happen too. But anybody that's, loves playing and wants to get back, they're going to be better than before.
Yeah.
But I think that's all I got. Anything else, Logan?
No, it's like I when I said when we started to contemplate this topic, I said we could take this whole time, and we could take probably 2 more times if we wanted to.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
know. But I feel like we covered it decent amount.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway is like there are 1,000 variables
Right.
to any injury. It's never one thing. Everyone's got a part. It's not the athlete. It's not just the practitioners. Now this is sport coaches. There's a lot that goes into it. And then I truly do think from a team setting, like the way to mitigate as much as possible is to not have huge fluctuations in load. Whether we're talking about time, intensity, whatever, like it's the same.
Right. I wrote this quote down because I love it. It's from Stephen Pressfield. He says, "The athlete knows the day will never come when he wakes up pain-free. He has to play hurt." And it's like, yeah, he's got to play hurt. That's it. So figure it out.
Yep.
That's it.
Okay.
You got to end it, I think.
Yeah, it's over. Oh, I got to push it in.
Yeah, you have to hit record.
Okay. Maybe I can't.
Okay. Thanks. See you next week.
Bye.